Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Cape Cod Times, dated Friday, January 31st of 2025. And we will start with the weather, as we always do. And across the Cape and Islands today, becoming windier. Not as cold as it has been. In the afternoon, expect rain. A high of 43 today. That's not too bad. Tonight, early rain, otherwise mostly cloudy. A low of 34 in the overnight. Tomorrow, Saturday, colder with a little snow possible, but mainly very early in the morning. High of 36, a low of 18 in the overnight, so tomorrow night's going to be very cold. Sunday warms up a little bit in the overnight, a high of 33, a low of 30. On Monday, 47 the expected high. Things definitely warm up a little bit during the day, mostly cloudy and milder. 30 the expected low. On Tuesday, partly sunny, high of 39, low of 21. So we have a little bit of a yo-yoing temperature gauge here, going between the 40s in the afternoon all the way down to 18 and 20 at night. The sun will rise at 6:54 a.m. It will set at 4:56 p.m. We'll have 10 hours, 2 minutes of daylight today. Now, heading to the front of the paper, where the news and the lottery results are kept. And we read these lottery results because, well, somebody asked for them. If there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org or call us at 508-539-2030, and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information that we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org, click on the Listen tab, and catch up on a week's worth of newspapers that we keep there. The audiblelocalledger.org is a disability-compliant website, so all of your screen readers should work perfectly on it, and we actually have instructions on how to use the internet for both Mac and PC there. All of that is free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. Now, for the latest lottery results, we go to the masslottery.com website because, well, the Cape Cod Times goes to bed too early to give you the latest results, and you certainly want those if you're asking for them. So, for the numbers game of Thursday, January 30th, in the midday drawing, the numbers were 5, 1, 2, 9. Again, yesterday's midday drawing numbers game, 5, 1, 2, 9. In the evening, last night's numbers game results were 3, 8, 0, 9. Again, last night's evening drawing of the numbers game, 3, 8, 0, 9. Mass cash results for Thursday, January 30th, 1, 3, 6, 13, and 29. And Lucky for Life rounds out our lottery results for Thursday, January 30th with 9, 13, 18, 23, and 40, with 4, the bonus number. Good luck to all who play, and remember us if you win. Now, from the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, I'm going to just warn you, there's very little local news in today's paper. So we'll start with the Cape and Islands instead of the front page. Cape Cod man to lead Nauset Regional School District by Denise Coffey. Glenn Brand, a veteran administrator with strong Cape Cod ties, has been named the new superintendent for the Nauset Regional School District. The district's Joint School Committee and a Superintendency Union 54 both gave unanimous approval at a meeting on Tuesday. Union 54 includes the district elementary school committees of Brewster, Eastham, Orleans, and Wellfleet. Contract negotiations will begin, and he's expected to start July 1st of 2025, according to an email from Maura Noonan-Carey, the Joint Committee Chair. The Nauset School District serves students in the towns of Orleans, Brewster, Eastham, and Wellfleet. Each town has its own elementary school. Students in grades 6 through 8 attend Nauset Middle School in Orleans, and those in grades 9 through 12 attend Nauset Regional High School in Eastham. Brand's appointment comes close on the heels of 3 Zoom community forums where the 3 finalists answered questions from the community. Besides Brand, the finalists included James Kimmy Carter, an assistant superintendent in Weston Public Schools, and Sean Parkhurst, a superintendent in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. The community forums were held on January 22nd and 23rd, with the finalists spending time meeting faculty, staff, and students while visiting schools. Brand has served as superintendent of the Wilmington Public Schools. That's a district with 2,840 students, according to school tracking website niche.com. He said his finance and administrative experience will help him deal with managing declining enrollments, the rising costs of education, Brewster's call for more budgetary control, and uniting the different town and regional school committees. The district will need to put efficiencies in place and promote the district for school choice students and families in order to increase enrollments, he said. He added, declining enrollments are problems facing municipalities across the state. His 2 to 3 month entry plan would focus on building relationships, holding informal meetings, conducting surveys, and gathering focus groups for all stakeholders to share information, ideas, and concerns. Those would form a blueprint for priorities, he said. Brand said the district will follow legal counsel regarding President Trump's recent policy stripping schools of immigration enforcement protections. He acknowledged that changes from the new administration were coming by the hour and day, and that the Mass Department of Education was working on providing guidance to school districts. Brand has been the superintendent of Wilmington Public Schools for 7 years. He was the superintendent at Acton-Boxborough Regional School District from 2014 to 2017, and assistant superintendent at Sharon Public Schools from 2011 to 2014. From 2002 to 2004, he was the assistant principal at the Dennis-Yarmouth Regional Middle School. Brand lives in Dennis, has a son in college, and a daughter attending Nauset Regional High School. He has spent 10 years teaching, 12 years in school administration. Well, it's time for some forecasting. Spring weather predictions from Old Farmer's Almanacs. This also from the Cape and Islands section. From Melina Kahn of USA Today. After months of brutal cold fronts throughout New England, the Old Farmer's Almanac is predicting warmer than normal temperatures for the region this spring. The Old Farmer's Almanac long-range spring weather forecast is predicting warm temperatures for most of the country in April and May. The publication divides its forecast by regions rather than states, and the New England area is split in two. Northeast region represents Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and the northwestern half of Massachusetts. The Atlantic Corridor region is made up of southeast Massachusetts, including Boston as well as Rhode Island and most of Connecticut. The Almanac spring weather forecast for western Mass, New Hampshire, and Vermont. For the northeast region of the country, which includes northwestern Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont, the Old Farmer's Almanac is predicting warm and dry days this spring. The publication said temperatures will be warmer than average in the area, especially in April, 3 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Precipitation is expected to be average in April and below average in May. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut in the Old Farmer's Almanac forecast. The Atlantic Corridor region, which includes southeastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and most of Connecticut, the Old Farmer's Almanac is also predicting above-average temperatures. The publication is predicting above-average rainfall in the region in April, slightly below normal rainfall in May. So how does the Old Farmer's Almanac make their predictions? According to its website, the Old Farmer's Almanac makes its predictions by comparing solar activity with weather patterns. The Almanac says it uses multiple academic disciplines for its predictions, including solar science, climatology, and meteorology. It also says the weather forecast methodology is the modern version of a formula created by the Almanac's founder, Robert B. Thomas, in 1792. How accurate are they? The Old Farmer's Almanac, which is slightly different from the Farmer's Almanac, claims an 80% accuracy rate on its predictions. In a report analyzing the success of its predictions for last winter, the Almanac said its total accuracy rate for the season was 64%. The publication attributed the lower rate to abnormal recent weather patterns. There is no more local news in today's paper. So we will move to sports, which we don't usually do, but because there is no other local news, we will read some sports local news. Falmouth raises level and gives Nauset a stern test by by Alan Gunn. Despite just 2 wins in the last 5 games, Falmouth has felt like it started to play hockey that can translate into wins and be effective in the postseason. The Clippers were unable to build upon their win over Martha's Vineyard January 22nd, but they didn't make it easy for Nauset in an eventual 4-2 loss at Charles Moore Arena on Wednesday. We went shift to shift with what I think is one of the top 10 teams in the state, Clippers coach Paul Moore said. We're tracking in the right direction and we would have liked to get a win out of that, but I liked our effort. We grinded to the end. The Clippers held a lead over Division III's top-ranked Warriors twice and had a breakaway chance on the stick of Gavin Powderly, who you wanted to have the puck, to tie the game late in the third period, only to be thwarted. Currently, the holders of a 6-9 record, that mark could look a lot different if they had a bounce in the close ones. The Clippers have played 7 games decided by 2 goals or fewer, and they are 3-4-0 in that stretch. Nauset boys hockey gets comeback win to stay unbeaten by Adam Kirkchin. The Nauset boys hockey team faced a stiff challenge from Falmouth Wednesday night, but the Warriors survived it, as you just heard, with a 4-2 comeback victory over the Clippers, who were 6-9. The Warriors, who are 12-0-1, earned their 7th straight win. In boys hockey, elsewhere in high school sports action, Monomoy Mashpee 4, St. John Paul II 2. The Monarchs, 8-7, skated past the Lions, 8-7, for their 3rd win in the last 5 games. It was Old Rochester 3, Bourne 2 in overtime. The Canalmen, who were 6-8, lost despite goals from Cole Thomas, who had an assist, and Landon Hope. James Kroll had an assist. Jackson Pomberg made 27 saves for the Canalmen. It was Diamond 6, Upper Cape 0. The Rams, who are 5-10, lost their 5th straight game. In girls hockey, it was Falmouth 5, Sandwich BMC 4. The Clippers, who are 8-5, topped the Blue Knights, who were 7-1, in a back-and-forth game. For the Blue Knights, Anya Kelsch scored 2 goals, while Marley Dwyer and Chloe Schultz each scored a goal. Elizabeth Stutzman had 2 assists, while Casey Pastilli and Emma Itri had 1 apiece. In girls basketball, it was Plymouth North 32, Barnstable 22. The Red Hawks, who were 3-10, lost their 6th game in a row. In boys basketball, it was Carver 68, Cape Cod Academy 46. The Seahawks, who are 2-10, lost their 7th in the last 8 games. It was Atlantis Charter 45, Sturgis West 31. The Navigators, who were 4-9, lost after a recent 3-game win streak. It was Norwell 82, Mashpee 39. The Falcons, who were 4-10, lost for the 9th time this month. In wrestling, it was Sandwich 56, Randolph 20, and Upper Cape 47, Southeastern 36. In boys swim and dive, Martha's Vineyard 101, Nauset 61. On Tuesday, the Vineyarders finished as Cape and Islands League dual meet champions, finishing undefeated against the other 3 teams in the leagues. For Martha's Vineyard, the team of Grady Stalgren, Michael Coletta, Roman Mullen, and Kau Deasis won the 200-yard medley relay. Paul Stayer won the 200-yard freestyle. Mullen won the 200-yard intermediate and 100-yard butterfly. For Nauset, Jack Hopkins won the 500-yard freestyle. In girls swim and dive, it was Nauset 94, Martha's Vineyard 55. On Tuesday, the Warriors defeated the Vineyarders in the dual meet. There was a terrible mid-air collision yesterday near Washington, D.C., near the approach to the runway. A jet carrying 60 people, give or take, crashed with a military Black Hawk helicopter that had 3 soldiers and a pilot. All 67 are dead in that mid-air collision. You've probably heard quite a bit about it, so we will move on to other national news. Trump signs order on school ideology and choice by Zachary Shamelli. In Washington, President Donald Trump Wednesday issued 2 executive orders promoting conservative education priorities. The first diverts federal funding from schools that teach discriminatory equity ideology. a phrase that loosely refers to systemic racism. The prohibited ideology, the order says, treats individuals as members of preferred or disfavored groups rather than as individuals, and minimizes agency, merit, and capability in favor of immoral generalizations. The edict says it will sanction schools that assert some people are oppressed because of their race, or that the U.S. is fundamentally racist, sexist, or otherwise discriminatory. The order also attempts to bar schools from using federal funds to support transgender and non-binary students through their social transitions, directly or indirectly. It prohibits allowing trans students to participate in sports on teams that don't correspond to their sex assigned at birth. The mandate will likely face court challenges since the federal government doesn't have the authority to set curriculum for U.S. schools. Legal experts also argue that anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ+ people extend to students. The federal government provides about 1/10 of the funding for school districts. The bulk of revenue for most schools comes from states and local property taxes. The second executive order directs federal agencies to find ways to prioritize school choice programs, which often use taxpayer money to help parents enroll their kids in non-public schools. The order instructs the Education Department to favor school choice programs when awarding discretionary grants. It requires the Interior Secretary to find ways to use federal money to help families with kids in Bureau of Indian Education schools enroll elsewhere. The Defense Secretary must propose a plan for military families. The decree delivers a win to the controversial school choice movement after it took several bruising defeats in the November election. Voters in Colorado and Kentucky rejected proposals to enshrine support for school choice in state law, and Nebraskans decided to repeal a school voucher program. The heads of the nation's largest teachers' union blasted the school choice order on Wednesday. Becky Pringle, who leads the National Education Association, accused Trump of illegally funneling federal dollars to private schools. Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, echoed those sentiments, calling the president's announcement a likely illegal scheme to diminish choice and deny classrooms resources to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. Also this week, the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights announced it's investigating Denver public schools for allowing a restroom in a high school to be used by people of all genders. The office claims the district violated Title IX protections when it converted a girls' restroom into a multi-stall, all-gender bathroom. Contributing to that story was James Powell of USA Today. The next story, Trump nominees face tense hearings. This is reported by Joey Garrison, Josh Mayer, Aisha Bagchi, Sarah Wire, and Savannah Kushar of USA Today in Washington. Thursday was a pivotal day for President Donald Trump's chosen chiefs, as three of his most polarizing nominees, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel, faced questions from separate Senate committees. Patel, Trump's nominee to lead the FBI, went before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The 44-year-old former federal prosecutor and national security official is known for his January 6th conspiracy theories and his strong loyalty to Trump. He previously stated that as FBI director, he would shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one, reopen it the next day as a museum to the deep state, quote unquote. In his opening statement, Patel said being the victim of government overreach and a weaponized system of justice and law enforcement makes him uniquely qualified to lead the FBI. I know what it feels like to have the full weight of the United States government barreling down, Patel said. As a House staffer, Patel was among dozens of aides who had his communications surveilled without his knowledge. He wasn't singled out. Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, who's the highest-ranking Democrat on the committee, said Patel, who hasn't worked for the FBI, hasn't managed a large group of employees, doesn't have the experience needed to run the nation's largest law enforcement agency. Durbin said Patel's loyalty is to Trump over the agency. On the other side, Judiciary Committee Chair Senator Charles Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, called Patel's career a study in fighting unpopular but righteous causes. Asked if he would investigate former FBI directors Christopher Wray and James Comey and former Attorney General Bill Barr, Patel said, I have no intentions of going backwards, and I have every intention of using the Constitution. Durbin asked Patel if the U.S. is safer because Trump granted clemency to 1,600 defendants in January 6th related cases. Patel said the pardons were within Trump's power. Pressed further, Patel said, I do not agree with the commutation of any sentence of any individual who committed violence against law enforcement. Some Republicans told Patel to clear out the rot, quote unquote, at the FBI. Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, cautioned him to rebuild. Don't go over there and burn down that agency. Lift it up. Clean it up, but lift it up in accordance with due process and the rule of law. Gabbard, Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, spoke to the Senate Intelligence Committee. The veteran and former Democratic representative from Hawaii has drawn criticism over her qualifications, over a 2017 trip to Syria, and various comments in support of Russia. However, committee chair Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas said on Fox Business Wednesday Republicans would make sure she's confirmed. In her opening statement, Gabbard tore into the U.S. intelligence community, saying it was politicized and badly broken. The post-9/11 U.S. invasion of Iraq was based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence, she said, and it led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers, millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Senator Mark Warner, vice chair of the committee, thanked Gabbard for her decades of public service before eviscerating her, saying his concerns about her judgment and fitness for office as the nation's top spy have only grown each time he has talked to her. Gabbard defended her Syria trip, telling Democratic Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico she asked Bashar al-Assad tough questions about his own regime's actions, the use of chemical weapons, and the brutal tactics that were being used against his own people. Kennedy, Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, answered questions from the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions a day after a shaky appearance before the Finance Committee in which he said he's in favor of vaccines. In opening statements Thursday, Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana who's a physician and must get vote, was still unconvinced. Cassidy said he's in total agreement with Kennedy on issues such as addressing obesity. But it's no secret, he continued, I have some reservations about your past positions on vaccines and a couple of other issues. Cassidy kicked off questions by asking if, as leader of the nation's largest health organization, Kennedy would unequivocally, quote-unquote, assure Americans, particularly mothers, that vaccines do not cause autism. Kennedy said he would, only after being shown data to that effect. The data has been there for a long time, Cassidy said. Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent of Vermont, ranking member on the committee, quizzed Kennedy about congressional Republicans' proposals to cut Medicaid funding, asking him whether he would confront Trump about how cuts could harm seniors and children. Kennedy said he was unaware of proposals to cut the program that covers about 1 in 5 Americans. I can only tell you what President Trump has told me, which is that he wants me to make Medicaid, Medicare, and Obamacare better, he said. In addition, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted on Thursday to advance New York Representative Elise Stefanik, Trump's pick to be U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, for a floor vote. And the body's Budget Committee okayed Russell Vought, Trump's pick to lead the Office of Management and Budget. Democrats on the committee boycotted the vote, writing on X, "We will not vote for someone so clearly unfit for office." Our next story in the Cape Cod Times, dated January 31st, 2024 consumer spending boosts economic growth. Financial strains could hit harder this year, by Paul Davidson of USA Today. The economy slowed late last year, but still turned in a solid performance as another burst of consumer spending was offset by a drop in business investment and stockpiling. The nation's GDP, gross domestic product, the value of all goods and services that are produced in the U.S., expanded at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 2.3% in the October to December period, the Commerce Department said on Wednesday. That's down from a 3.1% increase in the third quarter and an average 2.6% pace the first 9 months of the year. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg had forecast a 2.6% increase in output. For all of 2024, the economy grew 2.8%, down just slightly from a 2.9% clip the previous year. This year, forecasters expect the economy to grow 2.2%. This report paints a generally positive picture of the economy in the final months of former President Joe Biden's administration. But it also may reflect the business uncertainty that was generated by President Donald Trump's tariff and immigration plans, economists said. The good news, the American consumer is still driving the economy. Consumer spending increased a robust 4.2% at an annual rate following a 3.7% rise in the third quarter. Consumption makes up about 70% of economic activity. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve paused its flurry of interest rate cuts as it awaits details on Trump's tariffs and immigration crackdown and assesses whether an inflation slowdown will resume after stalling recently. Although the Fed cut its key interest rate by a percentage point late last year, rates are still high, Wells Fargo economist Sam Bullard said, lifting borrowing costs for companies. Here's how other parts of the economy fared. Housing boosts growth. Housing construction and renovation rose 5.3% after declining the two previous quarters. Residential investment has been sluggish because of high mortgage rates, but home building picked up late last year, especially for apartment buildings, amid a persistent nationwide housing shortage. Government spending rises. Government outlays increased 2.5%, down from 5.1% the previous quarter. Federal spending rose 3.2%. State and local purchases increased 2%. But Trump's federal hiring freeze and overall cost-cutting could cause government spending to fall in the current quarter, economist Paul Ashworth of Capital Economics wrote in a note to clients. And business investment declines. Business investment fell 2.2% after rising 4% the prior quarter. Company purchases of computers, delivery trucks, factory machines, and other equipment tumbled 7.8%. Spending on buildings, oil rigs, and other structures slipped 1.1%. And we will close this reading of the Cape Cod Times for January 31st of 2025 with U.S. student reading skills dropped again in 2024. And math scores also worse than before the pandemic, by Kayla Jimenez. New national test scores show a bleak picture of American education in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fourth and eighth graders' literacy skills dipped again on the U.S. Department of Education's National Assessment of Educational Progress, illuminating how temporary pandemic-related academic setbacks like school closures and remote classes continue to affect students' ability to learn nationwide. The nation's young people scored an average of 5 points lower in reading than kids who tested before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2019, from 220 to 215 for fourth graders and from 263 to 258 for eighth graders. Lower performers' scores dipped even lower than the national average, according to the nation's report card, which was published Wednesday. Reading test score declines began in 2019, exacerbated due to pandemic-related academic setbacks, and they've continued to slide because of the nation's complex challenges in reading, Peggy Carr, commissioner of the National Center for Education Statistics, said at a news conference on Tuesday. Student joy for reading is declining. We know that teachers aren't asking as much for essay responses to questions, Carr said. Students are also reading on devices. They're not reading passages on devices that maybe you and I did years ago. Lower performing readers are more likely to be absent from school, the new data set shows, which could also be contributing to the slide for that group of students. Fourth and eighth graders also performed worse on the math portion of the 2024 test than they did before the pandemic. Fourth graders scored 3 points lower than the pre-pandemic year on average. Eighth graders scored 8 points lower than before COVID-19 on average. Some students Fourth graders and high-performing eighth graders improved on math tests this year compared to 2022. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for January 31st of 2025. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.